Booga booga.
It's Kat and Brenton here to do some verses video for ya. First off, let me apologize. I think our last verses video where we had Eli in our video about Motley Crue, I forgot to say who we were going to be discussing on this video. And then we went on vacation with my nieces, so kind of had a chance to really talk about it. So my apologies to you for not telling you
Life goes on.
Who we're going to be talking about. But I've been reading this book here, Duff McKagan, So Easy, and Other Lies. And it's really, really good book. And since I've been reading this, I kind of thought, why not do Guns N' Roses? So that's what we'll be discussing today. We'll be discussing Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Take out the plastic so there's not a glare. And this is my copy of this record. He does have a copy of this.
Hers is an original and mine is a reissue. Right?
Yes. There's the inner sleeve with some fancy pictures of the band.
So you want to start or you want me to start?
Lyrics on the other side. You can start.
Well, this album, when it came out in 1987, I bought it on cassette and wore that copy out. Bought another cassette and wore that copy out. And then eventually got it on CD. And then later on vinyl when I started going vinyl crazy. But I couldn't ever get tired of listening to it. I like every song on it. And it was different at the time from really anything that was going on. I mean, it sort of had tinges of the 80s metal that was popular, but they were doing their own thing and they sort of had their own look. By the time that they had this album come out, they had their own look. Before that, they looked more like a lot of the LA bands. But they had a lot more raw sound, and their lyrics was a lot more in your face as far as it didn't seem like there was too much that they didn't want to write songs about. They wasn't afraid to say things that other bands might have been afraid to say. And I think Guns N' Roses is one of those bands that after Guns N' Roses, the music changed. There was bands that did that throughout the course of music, and they were definitely one of them. Hi.
For me, I actually first heard of Guns N' Roses when I went to see Motley Crue in concert. And they were the opening band for Motley Crue. I don't remember what year that was. 80.
Before their first album?
6 or 7 probably. It was, they did sing a lot of songs off this record, but I didn't even know who they were when I went to see them. I was like, okay, this band's opening up for Motley Crue. I was there to see Motley Crue. So,
duh.
I don't care. But once I seen them in concert, I was in love. Went immediately, bought the album. I do believe I bought it on cassette first, and wore it out. I think I went through 2 or 3 copies of it. Love every single song. I don't think there is a bad song on this record whatsoever.
No.
And I would have to say, out of Guns N' Roses stuff, this is my favorite.
Did you show the back of the album?
I don't think I did. Here's the back of this, by the way. I think I get a little bit of glare. There we go. This is my by far favorite anything they've ever done. I'm not saying I don't like their other stuff, but this is everything on here. It's my favorite.
And most people would probably say that, I would think.
I think the band changed throughout the years. Like, well, most bands do, but their first is by far the best.
And we have both agree and had said this probably in videos separately or maybe together that band's first album or albums is usually the better of their material for some reason. A lot of different reasons, really.
I think everything about this record is probably my favorite. The band's look at the time was my favorite. The front cover's my favorite. That's the greatest graphic.
And we're still looking for the other one that we actually
we found the other one.
We found the other one.
We just didn't buy it because we're
which is the alternate. That should be on the inner sleeve, and I don't think it's been printed on the reissue I got, the original sleeve, is it?
It's not on mine.
The original art, I mean.
It's not on mine.
No, I said it's not on mine either, I don't think.
Oh.
The original artwork was done by Robert Williams, and it was banned, and Geffen Records didn't want to release it with that cover, I think is what the deal was, so they had this cover instead, which was a tattoo that Axl has on his arm. Because the other cover depicted a robot and I don't know, it was... To think of it now, it's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah, there's worse things that are on album covers than that picture, for real.
But back in the 80s, everybody seemed to be so uptight about everything.
Yes.
When it came to music, or just in general, maybe.
It's real interesting to read this book by Duff and find the origins of how they wrote songs and where things came from. And, like Paradise City it's like a collaboration song. Like Duff started writing it back when he lived in Seattle, and then, Axl added his, and, Steven added his part, and it's just real interesting. The book is very, very good. If you have never read it, please read it. If you have never listened to this record, please listen to this record. Everybody should have heard this record by now. Everybody. And I mean everybody in the world should have heard this record by now.
I'm looking.
He's looking for the alternate cover on his phone, so we can show that to you. I'm sure you've seen it, but that's the alternate cover.
That was supposed to be the original artwork. And, we've seen a version of that album at a record store that had demo versions of a lot of the songs from Appetite for Destruction. And why don't we own it? I don't know.
We looked at it and both went, "Oh my God, that's so cool! Oh my God, oh my God!" And put it back.
And regretted it.
And have not stopped talking about why we did not buy it since.
But we do that.
Out of the songs on here...
Well, I'll say, just while I'm thinking about it, the first video I seen was Welcome to the Jungle, as a lot of other people probably have seen. That was the first one. On Headbangers Ball is when I seen it, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, because it was... I mean, when did you see a guy wearing a top hat with you couldn't even see his face?
Right.
And Axl did this snake dance or whatever they call it. That nobody did that. I mean, it was just, I don't know, and I think they were all wearing cowboy boots and stuff, and it was just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it definitely drew your attention. Right.
Well, Duff describes the band as they could have gone metal, they could have gone punk. Axl definitely has a punk attitude. I mean, that's undeniable. But because the punk world was dying, pretty much, the metal scene was alive and kicking. that's the road that they ended up taking. I don't know. I find it very interesting to read these books by these artists that I grew up with and find how difficult it really was for them to become this. I mean, it just doesn't fall in your lap. I mean, you can be talented and it just doesn't fall in your lap.
I was telling her that I remember either hearing or reading about Guns N' Roses, and this was before that initially before I heard any of their music, or I don't even think they had an album out. And I remember hearing a lot of things about how they were in trouble all the time, and they were, in jail, and they were very violent and into drugs and all this stuff. And it's like, I mean, a lot of bands probably were, but I think the level that they were at, or at least by the stuff that you would read, was beyond what other bands were doing or saying they were doing. And it intrigued me enough to think, I'd really like to know what their music sounds like. And then I remember seeing a picture later, not too much later after that, of what they looked like. And then, I would just had to buy something. The next thing I seen, I had to get, whatever it was. And it happened to be this album.
I would say Mr. Brownstone's probably one of my favorite songs off this album. Although I love every song on here. I never get tired of hearing Welcome to the Jungle or Paradise City, which are probably their more popular songs off this album.
Everybody and their brother knows those songs. And
But
Sweet Child of Mine especially.
I could live without hearing them.
What, that song?
Yeah, no, Paradise City or Welcome to the Jungle.
The singles.
Because, you just hear them so much. There's so many other great songs on this album.
Well, Night Train is like one
Night
of my
Train,
favorite ones.
Rocket Queen.
Rocket Queen's
come
right
on.
up there as my favorite.
It's like, there's so many other great songs on this album. So, I don't know. I love everything on here. I do.
And the logo is cool. They even have a cool logo. They're using this logo now for their current reunion, quote-unquote, reunion tour. You see it as the backdrop, and it's been on a lot of the flyers and stuff. I think it's called the Bullet logo or something like that. But it's the one I've always liked. They used to sell shirts when I worked at Spencer's that had this logo on the back. It was spray painted in pink. Spray painted said Guns N' Roses was here. This one doesn't say that, but I remember selling those at Spencer's when I worked there, which was probably like, well, it was that was '88, so.
So we've talked about bands that are out on tour right now from our era, and how they sound, and what do you think about the way that Guns N' Roses sound? I mean, we've watched a lot of footage of them recently.
Well, initially, and I don't know if one of us might have said this, but either way, when they first started the reunion tour, when we heard that they were going to do it, everyone was going to be skeptical because it's called Not in This Lifetime Tour is the name of it, and you would have never guessed that this would ever happen, let alone happen, now, this soon. I mean, they are getting older. Everyone needs to do it and get it over with if they're going to. But I don't know. I think that it's Axl, Slash, and Duff is the core of the original members, and then I think Izzy from the Use Your Illusion era was with them, and now I think they have a girl keyboardist. Some of the new footage I've seen, it's a blonde girl playing keyboards.
I don't know.
I don't know about that. I mean, I haven't heard what that's about, but
I don't know.
And then Steven Adler has played a few shows as a guest drummer,
which is incredible.
Yeah, he's very happy for that. You can tell with some of the footage you've seen. But as far as their sound, I haven't seen anything that's pro shot as far as soundboard or anything. But the audience sound, I've also seen a lot of the footage of Axl singing with Guns N' Roses. Does he do that? Sings with AC/DC. He's been doing those shows too. And I will say that initially, I don't know if it was because he had broke his foot and he was sitting in that chair for the longest time that I just felt like, I don't really care to see him. I'm not interested. and now that his foot's healed and he's moving around, it seems to be more energetic of a show, because I think the other band members feed off of him, or they feed off of each other. And Axl has always had a lot of energy, and he's always been, him and Slash both, as far as that goes.
Right.
And so I think that they've improved as far as the show itself, the energy level. The sound, I think Axl's voice is still there. And initially I didn't think that he had it in him. Because I have the DVD of the new Guns N' Roses that was the Guns N' Roses up until this so-called reunion, and I just didn't think he could sing anymore. A lot of the notes he couldn't hit. Maybe those shows were just mixed wrong, or maybe those were just he had a bad night or two. Ever how many shows they edited together, I'm not sure. When they were at Vegas, they did their Vegas residency or whatever it was. So I think they're getting better now. I don't know if his vocal cords have loosened up, or if he's I really don't know what it is. I think they sound fine. And I sort of wish that I'd went and seen them when they were around here. I think they'd already been around here.
Yeah,
they were in Cincinnati.
They were in Cincinnati.
So, but I don't know. I'm glad they're still doing it while they can. Because a lot of bands wait too long, or they just, after members die and stuff. Since all of Guns N' Roses is still alive, that's a major thing right there, because you would never have thought, not to wish anything negative on anyone, but you wouldn't have thought that they would all still be living at this point.
I think that my opinion is more... I think it's cool that they're touring, and that Guns N' Roses are able to still play their instruments and be able to perform and that kind of thing. But I guess my opinion is kind of, let me remember you like you were.
I agree with that.
Would I have gone and seen them when they were around here? Sure, I would have. It's Guns N' Roses. I wouldn't have missed it. But we did. Because
there's so much other stuff going on.
There was just so many other things going on.
And stuff, so there's a lot of reasons, not just that reason.
We just, after we heard that Axl broke his foot, we were both just kind of like, I don't know if I really want to go. I don't want to see Axl sitting in a chair singing songs. If I want to see that, I can watch that on YouTube. I wasn't propelled to go. Let's put it that way. But I still think Axl has vocal range. Not like he used to, but he definitely still can sing.
I think he's learned how to sing in a lower register.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hold notes as long as he used to.
Right.
And I think that's intentional. I don't think it's because he can't. I think he's intentionally trying not to, so he's saving his voice. Maybe he has a vocal coach. I think any of those guys should have a vocal coach. They should have always had one. And, they should be taking care of their self as far as, health-wise. And,
sure.
And I can't say that all of them has been doing that. They might say they are, but are they?
I think they probably are more so than they were back in the day.
Yeah, probably now they are, because they see the effects already. And
yeah.
They don't want it to, because that's their bread and butter as far as them out touring and selling records, especially touring. So I think, I think a lot of bands, behind the scenes, we really don't know what's going on 100% other than what we read. And me being Mr. Skeptical, I just think a lot of these bands are pushed to tour, to do a reunion, and to... maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems to me like a lot of these bands are pushed that direction too. And if they're offered the right amount of money, they'd be stupid not to do it. Because money makes people do crazy things.
Yes, it does.
But as far as this album goes, because we're running on 20 minutes now, I think that this album it's right up there with, and you know, you could pick a lot of albums, and I was going to name a few, but I'm not going to name a bunch of other albums by other artists, but it's just right up there. It's an essential album everyone should own, everyone should listen to. If you think you're not going to like Guns N' Roses because you've heard one or two songs, listen to the album, then make your opinion.
Yeah.
I give it 10 spins out of 10. So.
Okay. I definitely give it 10 out of 10. Let us know what you think. Tell us what you think about Guns N' Roses, about Appetite for Destruction. Who's your favorite member? What song do you like?
Have you seen them on this tour? What did you think?
Have you seen them?
Did they sound good? Did you like the set list? Did they play a lot of songs off this album?
Sure. Let us know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to my channel. Please subscribe to his. If you have not, it's under his name, Brenton Young. And what are we going to be doing next time?
Oh, God. I forgot to pick one.
Oh, no.
Oh, I see. This is going to be an ongoing thing. Well, on the spur of the moment, I'm going to pick for next episode of Versus, we are going to listen to Venom, Black Metal.
Oh, boy. Venom it is. We will see you on the next episode.
Peace out.